Hi, I'm Larry Powell with a feature report for Nipawa Access Community Television.
Particularly high levels of Fusarium, a serious disease of wheat, oats, and barley, have been discovered on fields like this on the eastern prairies this year, among the highest recorded in recent years. Here in Manitoba, government inspectors discovered Fusarium in 93% of the spring wheat they inspected this summer and 97% of winter wheat. Those high levels have served to focus renewed attention on some Canadian research done several years ago. Published in '09 in the European Journal of Agronomy, it documents a persistent link between Fusarium and glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup, the world's most widely used weed killer.
In this report, I'll attempt to find out why this seemingly important link has largely been ignored by governments, the media, agribusiness, and farmers themselves.
Fusarium is a fungal disease whose toxic spores spread through the air and soil, attacking the kernels and roots of cereal crops like wheat, oats, and barley. Actual dollar losses to producers are hard to find, but given that it infects crops across the country and around the world, there seems little doubt it has cost producers billions over the years. It's been described as one of the most notorious diseases of cereals in Western Canada. The most toxic kind seems to have spread from southeastern Manitoba all the way into Saskatchewan, inflicting hardship and economic loss on producers. It causes root rot and head blight or scab in the grains that it infects, and if it enters the food chain, it can be toxic to both humans and livestock. Even a few kernels found in a sample can seriously downgrade its value. These government maps show the risk of Fusarium in southern Manitoba over several consecutive days this summer. Red means the risk was extreme. Durum wheat, the kind used to make pasta, seems particularly vulnerable. In the face of the renewed assault this year, one observer is quoted as saying, "Prairie durum may go the way of the dodo bird and the dinosaur." And the news for barley producers isn't much better. In the 90s, Fusarium grew from rare to commonplace in Manitoba's barley fields in just a few years. And word has it, producers were particularly hard hit again this year, especially in the Red River Valley. Don Huber is professor emeritus in plant pathology at Indiana's Purdue University. He's either taught or done research in his field for over 60 years. More than a decade ago, he joined that research team already mentioned in an 8-year study of Fusarium in Saskatchewan.
With the extensive use of glyphosate, we've seen the increase in head scab. We've seen a tremendous increase in toxin production because it provides the conducive physiological conditions that are required for the pathogen to infect and produce those toxins in the plant.
Professor, just to make sure I understand, quoting from your own research report, previous glyphosate use was consistently associated with higher levels of Fusarium head blight. Now, as I understand it, much more product, Roundup, is sprayed on crops like canola than they are on cereals. So could it be the glyphosate that was sprayed on a previous crop of canola, maybe the year before in the same field, that you refer to here?
Yes, that's correct. This could be any time the glyphosate was applied up to 3 years prior to planting a wheat or barley crop, you would see an increase in severity of those diseases. Now, the more glyphosate that's applied, in other words, if you apply it 2 years ago as a burn down, and then, or if you apply it every year as a burn down, you'll see an increased intensity in the severity of the disease with the increased application of glyphosate.
Huber doesn't argue that the heavy rain Manitoba has experienced in recent years has played a role too, but by one estimate, the use of glyphosate-based herbicides worldwide has increased 15-fold since the mid-90s. With that kind of increase, you no longer need a certain combination of weather factors like moisture and heat, as you once did before that heavy usage began. That same Saskatchewan research finds that minimum till farming systems, which depend heavily on glyphosate for weed control, also have higher rates of Fusarium. And this later study, published in 2011, shows that cereals grown on organic systems, which use no synthetic pesticides, do develop Fusarium too, but it's mostly of the less harmful kind.
One of the things that isn't understood is that glyphosate is a very broad spectrum antibiotic against those normal organisms that we have in the environment that would normally suppress Fusarium growth. It is a tremendous stimulant for Fusarium. Fusarium is one of the few organisms that can utilize glyphosate, as shown by Dr. Robert Kremer, so that you have that differential antibiotic effect, but the effect of glyphosate as an antibiotic drastically changes the soil ecology.
Dan Major grows cereal grains, oil seeds, and other crops on his farm near Justice, northeast of Brandon. He's a conventional producer, which means he uses glyphosate too. He sprayed a fungicide to keep Fusarium levels down on his wheat fields this summer, but it wasn't easy.
And there was, if you look back to the maps in the August, like when we were spraying for it, the pressure was really high this year. It's probably one of the highest years that we've seen for Fusarium pressure too. So all in all, the crop did pretty good to keep it at bay, and the guys, or whatever reason, the crops didn't take it on, and maybe there was a lot, and I know there was a lot more fungicide applied to keep it at bay as well.
While he doesn't give a total dollar figure on his losses, Major says Fusarium reduced his wheat crop down to feed level this year, probably costing him 10 cents a bushel or $7 an acre, plus about $10 an acre for the fungicide. While he's aware of the research pointing to the Fusarium glyphosate connection, he does not believe it has been proven true.
I would think if there was a link to it and we're spreading disease onto the, feeding, I think the terms were used, feeding Fusarium, so we would have problems with glyphosate, or feeding the Fusarium through glyphosate. I don't know. I haven't, you would think people would catch on to that pretty quick if that was, in fact, proven out true over and over again. I think the government would be all over that as the researchers and the agronomists and all that. But I haven't, again, that's hasn't been, I heard it way back then, and nothing seemed to become about it since then.
A couple of weeks ago, I emailed 3 ministers of agriculture to see if they might revisit the research into that possible glyphosate connection in light of the high levels of Fusarium this year. The office of Saskatchewan's Minister, Lyle Stewart, points to a Quebec study published in 2012 to show there's no scientific consensus on the subject. It's among the same studies the makers of Roundup, Monsanto, also use to defend their product. It was conducted over 2 years as compared to the 8-year Saskatchewan research. It did find that one kind of Fusarium toxin was enhanced by glyphosate, but in only one of the 12 trials conducted. Its main conclusion, therefore, was the chemical had no significant effect on development of the disease. Don Huber claims the Quebec research did not use glyphosate-free plots to begin with, as his own team did. Therefore, its findings are invalid. I was unable to reach the lead author of the Quebec study, Marie-Yves Berube of Laval University, for comment. The other 2 ministers I emailed, Canada's Lawrence Macaulay and Manitoba's Ralph Eichler, did not get back to me. Huber remains confident that the findings of that 6-member research team he served on in Canada, which were unanimous, are as true today as they were then. He's neither surprised that Fusarium levels are high this year,
nor that in covering the outbreak this time, Canadian media have seemingly made no reference at all to that glyphosate connection.
There's tremendous amount of scientific censorship when it comes to the product and also the process where it's used. The no-tilling is sacred consideration in many respects, just like your GMO crops are. And those two situations have been facilitated by the availability of glyphosate. It's been a very powerful tool as far as weed control. It's just that we've ignored a lot of the side effects that we're now having to face just because of the immensity of the problem.
Huber says it's not unusual for scientists like himself, whether in the US or Canada, to be threatened with either legal action or even death by those with a vested interest in making sure their research never sees the light of day. He refuses to be more specific. In Canada, the lead author on Huber's team was Dr. Miriam Fernandez, a veteran researcher with Agriculture Canada. She declined my request for an interview. For more stories like this, please visit my blog, planetinperil.ca. For NACTV, I'm Larry Powell. Bye for now.